Okay, hi everyone. This is Greg Chapman here, coming to you from Australia, and I'm here with the esteemed Lisa Morton, multiple Bram Stoker Award winner and a screenwriter, and also my the collaborator on Witch Hunts, a graphic novel that Lisa and I. Wow, we can't believe it's actually been 10 years since this graphic novel was published by the great people at McFarlane and Company there in the US. And it's still going strong. And I guess we thought we'd celebrate by sharing with you how this graphic novel came to be. So Lisa, I think I can say a little bit about how I got involved, but then it'd be great to hear from you how Rocky Wood, the late Rocky Wood, brought you on board. It all came about out of the blue for me. I just got an email from Rocky. I'd never communicated with him before, and he was apparently at a conference somewhere here in Australia and was shopping around for another artist because he'd previously done a graphic novel with McFarlane and he wanted to use an Australian. And I believe my name was dropped with Rocky, and he emailed me out of the blue and said, would I be interested? And I tell you, I'm glad I was sitting down because it was a bit of a shock. But I believe you came on not long after. How did you get involved, Lisa?
First of all, I'm amazed. I thought he knew you. This is the first time I'm hearing that you guys even know each other. That's great. Yeah. I came on board as a slightly later addition when he found out that he had ALS, or as we refer to it here in the US, sometimes calling it Lou Gehrig's disease. And when he was first diagnosed, he was very concerned about the fact that he might not be able to finish the book.
Yeah.
And so he asked me if I would consider coming on board. And originally it was going to be a kind of worst case scenario thing for me. If he couldn't finish it, I would come in and take over. But as we began talking about it more, he kind of wanted to just make me a co-writer with him, and that really is how it turned out, with us almost perfectly splitting the writing duties.
Yeah.
I think.
And you hadn't done a graphic novel before then either?
I hadn't, but I love them, and I had always wanted to try one, and I had studied without even doing this book or anything. I mean, I've always read things like I've read Alan Moore's scripts for his graphic novels because I'm a huge Alan Moore fan, and I always thought it was such an interesting art form, and I really wanted to try one. So that and working with Rocky, and then of course finding out more about you and seeing your work was all part of why I was like super excited to be part of this team.
Yeah. Initially too, doing a graphic novel on the witch hunts wasn't our initial idea. Rocky wanted to actually do something on ancient astronauts, I think, or Napoleon. And I did actually do a test page for him around the Napoleon idea, which I think even had vampires in it. So we sort of started really left of field. And then I don't think McFarlane was keen on doing the Napoleon thing. So we had to come up with a different idea. And between the two of us, we just came up with, well, nothing's really been done in a graphic format on the witch trials. And it's got so much depth to it. And it was just really exciting for me to even consider drawing all the different years and periods of the trials. And I just thought, yeah, let's do that. So yeah, a lot of people may not know that, but witch hunts wasn't really the first thing that we thought of. So the writing, how did you and Rocky even start the process of, what you were going to bring to the graphic novel and where to begin? Because there's just hundreds of years of history with the witch trials.
Yeah, absolutely. I think by the time that I kind of came on board, he had written maybe the first chapter. So we kind of had an idea of where the style he was going for and where he was starting from, which was important. That gave us a really good starting point, that first chapter. And from there, we both just kind of kept researching. And I forget exactly how we decided to split up who would write what chapter, but we did that at some point. And then, of course, we would even go over each other's work and make suggestions or corrections or whatever. And there was at the time that we were doing this, I mean, since then there have been quite a few books that have come out on the witch trials, and we didn't have those things have all come out within the last 10 years. So when we were researching this, I remember doing a lot of like digging in older books, and it was all fascinating and it was all horrifying. I think even I didn't quite realize some of the motivations that were involved.
Same.
Of course, yeah, I mean, I think we all know it was a true Holocaust, that there were at least 50,000 people murdered. Some of the estimates go as high as 100, 150,000. But it was an absolutely horrific thing that went on for several centuries and was really all in the name of power. Power and greed were what really were the fuels that lit these, no pun intended, fires. And it was just absolutely horrific. And, the fact that much of it was incredibly misogynistic was also something that I thought was really needed addressing and was interesting to address.
Yeah, and I think that was the theme that was carried across the entire book, the reasons behind it, and getting into the nitty-gritty of the motivations behind why people did it. And I think that was what it appealed to me as well. And to be honest, I didn't know a great deal about the witch trials outside of what the Catholic Church's role was in it. So it was also, I found it very informative as well. So that kudos to you and Rocky's writing. I actually have one of the scripts here. I think this one is yours from your Martin Luther chapter. So they're extremely detailed. How did you sort of work out what you wanted to put across in a chapter? Did you come at it? Yeah, go ahead.
Were my chapters a little more detailed than Rocky's? I'm curious about
the same. I'd say Rocky was probably, I wouldn't use the word strict, but he was probably a bit more specific about what he actually wanted on the page. And you did as well, but I think both of you had the same sort of level of detail, and there was a lot of back and forth between the three of us as well about, sometimes I offered a different idea of what might work for the illustration. So it definitely was a collaborative approach, but I found that both of you did the same level of detail, and I could see the same level of research going into it.
Yeah, I know with me, like I said, I was very influenced by Alan Moore, who's one of my favorite writers, and his scripts are insanely detailed.
Oh, yes.
Yeah. I don't know if you've ever seen one, but I mean, he will take an entire single-spaced page to describe one panel. And most comic writers are not anywhere near that level of detail. I mean, that's extraordinary. And they're entertaining to read. They go off on tangents, and it'll be the kind of thing where he'll say, there's a guy who's walking across the street from left to right, and he's thinking about his mother and what she did to him. Yeah, I mean, they're great to read. Yeah. They're very novelistic. And so I am not by nature someone who's going to pursue that level of detail as a writer, I think, but I did want to include some of that kind of level of detail. And I think Rocky obviously did too then. And I suspect that maybe also makes it a little easier for you as the artist sometime.
Yeah, it certainly did. I mean, it was a daunting task, I will admit. So it was great to have that level of detail in the scripts, because I knew exactly what I had to draw. I knew what I had to go and research as far as costumes and things like that. And I've got, I had to go and do my own research. I went and found a fantastic book, which I think was a costuming for film book in the library. And it just had just about every era in it and different levels of what peasants wore, what more aristocratic type people wore. So that was a real great find, and that helped me get through having to draw just about every different style of clothing across centuries. It was great to have that at my disposal. And I think just the scripts, knowing that what I was going to get from you was just going to be so succinct that I knew what I had to do, and it was minimal. The amount of stuff that I'd ask a question about, I found I didn't really have to ask too many questions or clarifications around things, so that was great. So which chapters did you write? I know you wrote the Martin Luther one from memory. Were there any others that sort of you had a real great time or fun writing?
It's been 10 years.
Yeah.
I actually don't remember even which one of us did which chapter, but I was going to mention that one of my favorite things to research, and I'm sure you remember this too, was we were trying to figure out what in the heck was a torture device known as the Scottish boots.
Yeah.
And it took us forever to figure that out. And it was such an accident that we finally discovered what it was. I was watching, and now I'm trying to remember if I was just watching it for fun or research, the classic silent film, I think it's 22, Haxan, Witchcraft Through the Ages.
Yes.
And there was a scene in that where the Inquisition was torturing a woman, and it said, and they used the Scottish boots, and it showed a close-up of them, and it's like, oh, that's what it is. Okay, great. And I think I sent you like frame captures or something of that.
Yeah, I've got the page here. Yeah, you did I think it was from the King James. You did the King James
yes, that sounds
chapter.
Right. Yeah.
And yeah, I think this is the Scottish boots. Were just looked absolutely awful.
Yeah.
I mean, just the mechanism, and I don't want to use the word ingenuity of the device, because but just the ways that humans can actually put their minds to coming up with these horrible devices of torture. It was fascinating to research. There was another one that was some sort of a fork that was one end poked into this area here near your clavicle, and the other one went into under your chin and kept your head back. Just awful. But yeah, great to draw. I certainly love drawing them, which might sound a bit macabre, but that's what I was dealing with and I wanted to make sure I was conveying something that was just as authentic as your and Rocky's words, the message you were trying to tell. So I really had a blast drawing it. It took me pretty much an entire year to draw this whole graphic novel, which was about 200 odd pages. And I did show Lisa before, but this is the folder of the drawings. I've still got it here. It's just never ending. It's quite heavy too, so if it fell on someone, I think it'd be regarded as a torture device too. So I guess that's how did I translate your script into art? Well, I think towards the end of the drawing the graphic novel, I reached a decision where there was just so much in the script that the only way I thought I could draw it was as these full page splash pages, because there's also a lot of dialogue and descriptive text that needed to be in there. And I found that drawing these full splash pages in the second half of the book was really, I hit a rhythm, and I just kept going with that. And I'm glad that you guys were sort of sending me scripts going, I think this one can be a full page, or this page can be a full page. So that took a lot of pressure off me. But yeah, I think what I wanted to do was I just wanted to go for that authenticity and there was a lot of different things, the architecture of certain periods, which is probably not my strongest suit, drawing buildings, but I found it really challenging. So I did do a lot of research and trying to make sure that everything was as accurate as possible. And then, then the book came out and was very well received. But it did get caught up in a little scandal on social media, didn't it, Lisa?
It did, and I'm still not convinced how scandalous that really was.
It's probably more of a headache for us, but yeah, somehow I got involved in something.
It feels almost like one of those sort of Facebook burps, where their algorithm goes nuts rather than some human going, "Oh my God, this is terrible. We have to remove this." But it was banned or something from Facebook.
Yeah.
And I do suspect that it was some sort of algorithm thing. Rocky thought it was quite deliberate and wrote very passionately about it, and his responses to it are magnificent things to read.
Yes, that's right. There are great things in themselves justifying why this graphic novel exists, and it was very important to say. But I think it was just supplementary issues for us because our pages got blocked too, didn't they? I know mine did. Yeah. We got caught up in some sort of issue around. It was around persecution of women and things like that, which is obviously what the crux of our graphic novel is about. And we just somehow got caught up in that. And it was annoying and gave us a bit of a headache for a few days. But I think it also showed the amount of support that we had in the horror community, because everyone came into bat for us. And it wasn't just us either. I know Greg Faraday, his book was also caught up in it simply because of the title. So it was fascinating times, and just part of that great memorable journey of bringing this graphic novel to life. But one positive too was another thing out of the blue was when we heard it became a textbook in a history class.
Yeah, that was my favorite thing of all, I think. I just love hearing that people are actually using something I was involved with to learn and to teach about something that, of course, I think is very important. It tends to be one of those elements of history that people sort of either push aside, or they think it was like, oh, it was just the Salem witch trials, and yes, it was terrible that like 16 people died in Salem, but no, this was a huge thing. And so I love being able to come in and offer that little historical reminder that this happened and that this is still happening in parts of the world. There are still women who are being murdered as so-called witches in various parts of the world. And so obviously a book like this isn't going to stop that, but maybe it will shed a little more awareness somewhere.
Yeah, and with the college, they had to write essays on the book, and I was surprised too that a lot of them all sort of said, "Hey, I had no idea that there were other witch hunts outside of Salem." So, if anything, we helped educate those students, and they'd have a lot more knowledge of the broader history of the witch trials. And you're totally right. This issue is still ongoing, and probably sadly will always be ongoing. So at least the book will always be there for people who want to learn more about it. And of course, it won a Bram Stoker Award, which was a real huge achievement for the three of us. And I know that Rocky was very proud. I know that at the time that you won the award, that his ALS was pretty bad, and I was always very proud of knowing that he had achieved, both of you had achieved that award for something that we'd all worked so hard on. And I'm always grateful for Rocky for bringing me on board, because I'm really I was really a nobody before this, so I'm always going to take great pride in this book and how it's helped me with my career, and I'm sure you're the same.
Yeah, absolutely. And another wonderful thing that Rocky did was, I think he said something similar to you. He said to me, "Oh, you're really going to like this Greg Chapman guy." Like, I think he kind of also set us up as friends, and which we have remained ever since doing this book. And
Yeah.
been so cool to watch your career continue to unfold, and to see both your art and your fiction. And so yeah, it was the beginning of that fun little journey as well.
Yeah, and it's still ongoing, and I'm just, I'm really proud of the book. It's probably a task um, I wouldn't set myself again necessarily. It'd have to be a pretty good subject, but I'm glad I did it, and I'm really proud of it. And I know you are too, and I know Rocky was, and I'm just so thankful that people received it so well and still talk about it to this day. So. I want to thank you too, Lisa, and for your fantastic writing and all the different pages and things. I believe this is, well, I asked you which one of your pages was your favorite, and I think it's one from the Martin Luther chapter. I've got it here. You want to tell me a little bit about why this one's your favorite?
What I wanted you to capture with that was the sense of how these witch hunts had desolated these entire communities. That's something else that a lot of people don't know about, is the way these things would work was there was an entire cottage industry built up around the witch trials. There were judges and torturers and executioners who would actually travel from town to town conducting these trials. And they would go to a town, they would continue to hold these trials and these, as you can see here, these executions, until the whole area was just drained dry. And then they would just pick up and move on to the next area. And I mean, when we say drained dry, we're talking financially, and in terms of depleting parts of the population. And but they would, about the only people who ever made money from these things, aside from the torturers and judges and executioners, were some innkeepers who profited from these guys who would come and stay in their towns. But other than that, it just left entire towns devastated. And so I wanted to capture that sense that the field in the foreground is barren. There's nobody left to work the field. So there's no food being produced. In the middle ground, we've got the burnings that are still going on. And then behind that, we have the sort of central square of the town, and it's almost empty.
Yeah.
So that was, and I just loved this drawing. And I just thought you really captured this sense of loneliness and ruin that was going on with these things.
Yeah, it's a harrowing picture, and probably says a lot more than some of the other, pages that I drew of people being tortured and things. I think this sums up the whole book really. How, like you say, they just came in and they just, with this ridiculous notion, and just ruined whole communities and lives. And it's like you say, it is still happening in some parts of the world today. And at least these pictures will remind people that it's not new. It's happened over a long period of time. And I didn't actually ever ask Rocky what his favorite page was, but I know he enjoyed the Heinrich, the Malleus Maleficarum, the sort of early pages. He liked those, and I loved capturing the sinister sort of nature of those people, and they really were awful, awful people. I really wanted to convey that, but it's just so much fun recreating different periods of history and all the different details of the Gutenberg press, and that iconic image that I did of Martin Luther hammering in his tenets on the door, and
Right.
really fun to do. So Yeah, but I don't think there's a hell of a lot more to say about this graphic novel other than it is still available.
It was we should mention it was a Jeopardy question.
Yes, yeah. How could I forget that? I sent you that shirt.
Yeah.
That was really cool. Somebody, I think a friend of yours must have told you that they'd seen that. Yeah, it was a Jeopardy question, and I think that is just so cool.
I was watching at that time that this question came on. I had just become my mother's caregiver, and she loved Jeopardy, and she watched it every night. And I think I was doing laundry or something when this awards category came on, and I came into the room just in time to see, because it was an entire
Oh, you
Bram
got to
Stoker
see it.
category.
That's cool.
Yeah. And I saw that category and just about keeled over dead. And as I'm standing there gaping at the category, this question came up. And I mean, it was stunning. Yeah.
Yeah.
And, yeah.
Yeah,
So
I didn't get to see it. I'm sure if I did a YouTube search, I'd probably find it. But I just couldn't believe that. I thought, wow, our little book, which has so much to say, ended up on one of the US's biggest, game shows. And I think I was the same. I nearly fell over myself, and hence that's why I've put it on a T-shirt and given it to you, because I want you to be able to wear that when you go to your cons and to see it and everyone and go, wow, it really was a question on Jeopardy. Is it a question? Do you call it a question or is it an answer?
Yes, you're right. I guess either a clue or an answer.
Yeah, clue or an answer.
Yeah.
That was just so cool, and I think that just says it all. This little book of ours made it all the way to a game show. I think that's awesome.
And it's too bad. I think Rocky was gone by the time this was a question, which is too bad, because I know he would have loved that. Hopefully he's enjoying it somewhere else,
Yep. Hopefully he's up there, shaking his fist at some of the people responsible for the stuff that happened in the book. Yeah. All right. Well, thanks, Lisa. It's been really great chatting to you, and I know we both lead very busy lives, and I appreciate you taking your time out to chat to me. I'd like to do it more often whenever we can, and I would also like to see you again in person someday. I don't know when that's going to happen, but hopefully one day soon. But thanks again, and everyone, Witch Hunts is available on Amazon or through the McFarlane website. I do recommend, though, if you are going to buy it, that you get it in print. I'm sure you'd agree, Lisa, that it'd be much more enjoyable to read in print, and it's quite a hefty tome. Thanks again, and until next time.
Yes, thanks for suggesting this, Greg. It was great to chat with you, and I hope everyone else is having a great time. And now that hopefully things are starting to ease up a little in the world.
Yeah, that we can get back. Yeah, we can get back together and share a drink and reminisce in person. Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely.
All right. Well, that's it. Thanks everybody for watching. Bye.
Bye-bye.